Can you believe synthwave didn't actually exist in the 80s? In fact, it didn't exist till around the late 2000s. Picture this. You hop into your DeLorean, it's fully loaded with all the best features including its iconic gull-wing doors. The night sky is lit up with neon purple and orange lights. You're ready for your drive. You buckle up, you turn on your radio, and your ears are filled with those luscious rolling bass notes and those bright synths. Wait a second, the sky's not filled with neon lights. I'm not driving a DeLorean, I'm in a Ford Pinto, and instead I'm listening to The 1980s was a decade that birthed numerous musical movements, each one leaving its own mark on pop culture. One movement that's often attributed to the 80s with a twist is synthwave. But today we're going to talk about the myth that synthwave was an actual genre that people listened to in the 80s. Let's explore the history and origins of synthwave. Synthwave is often characterized by its retro nostalgic futuristic sounds, and in recent years, it's grown significantly in popularity, captivating a new generation of listeners, drawing inspiration from sounds that were often heard in the 1980s. Synthwave artists today aim to recreate this soundscape of this bygone era. But was synthwave truly a genre that emerged out of the 80s? I'm just gonna come out and say it, but no. Synthwave didn't exist in the 80s. Now, to understand the musical landscape, we need to examine the dominant genres that actually defined the 80s. The 80s witnessed a bunch of genres like pop, new wave, post-punk, hair metal, but nothing that was actually synthwave. Even though these genres that I mentioned were different from each other, they all had one thing in common, and that was the use of synthesizers. With their distinct electronic sound, synthesizers played a significant role in shaping the genres at that time. However, it's important to know that even though these genres used synthesizers, they were very diverse from each other. Each one encompassed a wide range of styles, sound, influences. It's pretty obvious that pop music with its catchy melodies and polished productions often dominated the charts in the 80s. New wave, characterized with its synthesis of punk and electronic sounds, showcased bands like New Order or Depeche Mode. Post-punk pushed the boundaries of traditional rock music before that time, featuring bands like Joy Division or The Cure. These genres all utilize synthesizers, but were not synonymous with what we know as synthwave today. You see, the term synthwave is relatively new. It's a term that came out in the late 2000s, and it was kind of a genre labeling term. It was used to describe music produced by artists who sought to recreate sounds and aesthetics from the 1980s. It was an intentional homage to the past, driven by the desire to revive the nostalgic feelings of that era. If you listen to synthwave and you wonder why it makes you feel nostalgic, it's because it's been produced to do that. It's been produced to make you feel nostalgic, like you were actually in the 80s. I like to think of synthwave as kind of the rose-tinted glasses you have on when you're thinking about the 80s. And the reason I say that is because no one talks about the stuff that actually sucked in the 80s. There was the Cold War. Most places that you went to often smelled like cigarettes. Technology was slow and super expensive, and AIDS. However, synthwave today was actually heavily influenced by the sounds and aesthetics of the 80s. Mainly coming from film scores or video game soundtracks, it heavily borrowed musical elements from these things. The pulsating synthesizers, the driving bass lines, and the melodic leads are reminiscent of this era's media. But naturally, like everything, the production techniques, the sound quality, and overall sonic characteristics have evolved over time. Modern technology and advancements in music production allow today's artists to refine and enhance the sounds of the past. It's crucial to place synthwave in its historical context. The rise of synthwave coincided with the growth of the internet, which involved sharing music and forming online communities. Artists and fans connected, and they shared their love for the sounds of the 80s. The digital age allowed synthwave to flourish. It allowed it to grow, gaining substantial following and growing into this subculture that we know it as today. Synthwave isn't really just about the music though. It's kind of a whole experience, characterized by its vibrant neon colors, retro-futuristic imagery, and nostalgia-driven artwork played a crucial role in this genre's growth. This music and these visual elements created a complete package that resonated with audiences. Synthwave is something you listen to escape to a time that you probably didn't get to experience firsthand. While synthwave does capture the essence and nostalgia of the 80s, it's important to recognize that synthwave wasn't an actual genre in the 80s. Synthwave represents a contemporary artistic movement. It's a unique musical phenomenon that emerged in the digital age. Even though synthwave didn't actually exist in the 80s, I think we're still gonna tie it with that era. And to me, it's perfectly fine. I think it's something we can all enjoy. Whether you were a teenager in the 80s or you were born in the late 2000s, you're a little baby. Personally, to me, it's another musical escape and it's just awesome. I love synthwave. Thank you so much for watching my video. That's gonna be it for me and synthwave. And yeah, I'll see you later.